welcome to another DSE Trading instructional video. Ken Goldberg here. Wanted to thank everyone for joining us. Today we're going to look at one of the DSE's most obvious components, and that is the stochastic study. You'll note that every screen we look at, every chart we look at, there's an upper pane of price and a lower pane of stochastic study. And today we're only going to talk about these stochastics. There are statistical calculations of different trends, short and long term, crossing this, crossing that. It's really irrelevant. What we use them for is to gauge the herd's sentiment, their willingness and ability to continue the behavior of the most recent trend. So let's look back here in the middle of the chart. This happens to be the chart of the ETF called TLT. That's the iShares 20-year Treasury tracking stock. We're not looking at prices or signals or anything other than to note that at some point when price has gone up enough, or oftentimes too much, price starts to roll over, and oftentimes that is correlated with these stochastics. I'm now down at the middle of the page at the bottom. These stochastics falling from this upper dotted boundary at the 90% threshold to or below the dotted boundary, which is a 10% threshold. So if you think of it, above 90% is overbought, below 10% is oversold. So when prices are continuing to rise while stochastics are bumping their heads up in the 90% to 100% plus area, that is a warning sign. That doesn't mean that prices can't continue higher. This is a great example. Each one of these head bumps in stochastics at the bottom led to higher and higher prices for a while. But what we notice is that these stochastic runs are making lower highs while the price behavior is making higher highs. And what that sets up for is a very sharp decline. You could say, well, I don't mind the decline because look at all the gains I made while the divergence was forming. The problem is that sometimes you're lucky and prices make these types of moves while overbought stochastics are making these types of moves. On the other hand, sometimes price is making this type of a high as stochastics is making this type of a high, and they fall together. So one of the most important things we do is not make buy or sell actions or decisions just based upon the stochastics reaching the 90% threshold or the 10% threshold, but in a component system like the DSE where there's multiple indicators and we're looking for a strong majority of those indicators to give the same indication or message. 8 out of 10, in our case, 8 out of 10 of the DSE's components have to be signaling the same thing. And when that happens, as it did not throughout this climb in price and decline in stochastics, but it certainly did, I'm up at the price chart now, it certainly did up in this area, which led to this type of behavior. It certainly did in this area, which led to this type of behavior and this type of price decline. That's a big one. Here, price bounced, stochastics didn't get as high. They made another lower high. I'll show that with a line. They made another lower high. this time they made that lower high as prices were making a lower high. And that led to this behavior in price, lower lows. Now at some point, the DSE gives us a signal that the lower highs and lower lows behavior is about to end. And that type of indication came in June and July as stochastics started to make higher bottoms as prices were making lower bottoms. And that created the opposite divergence that was created up here when higher highs in price were met with lower highs in stochastics. Here, lower lows in price are being met with higher lows in stochastics. Now again, at the far right side, higher highs in price here are being met with lower highs again in stochastics. And for our readers and our followers and our members, we were looking to short up into this area, up into the 122 to 124 to actually 124 plus or minus 2. We got there, we got short, we posted it on our website, in our articles on thestreet.com, and within a couple days of that, these are daily price bars, TLT is now falling sharply, and the stochastics are about to fall sharply as well. So that is how we use stochastics, not by themselves, not as autonomous generators of buy and sell action, but as a component within the DSE's 10 indicators, looking for 8 out of 10 or more to point in one direction for us to indicate a certain action. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for other videos on the different components of the DSE.